Hello. So far, Ray Franz has only experienced the inquisition indirectly through the examination, often cross-examination, and the disfellowshipping of several of his friends and longtime colleagues. Now he's about to go into the lion's den himself. He's already noticed that the method employed by the governing body and their associates is anything but what he would have expected from an organization run by God. Where is the love? Where is the believing all things? So far, all he's seen is suspicion and accusation. So now we go back to the experience of Rene Vazquez as we lead into Ray's experience, direct experience with the governing body, which is still to come. He's still reflecting on what was going on around him at this point, and he says, when Rene Vazquez, for example, on being interrogated, endeavored to express himself moderately, undogmatically, to show that he had no desire to make flaming issues of minor doctrinal matters, and to make clear that he was not being insistent that anyone else see things as he did or adopt his views. He found that this was very unsatisfactory to the Judicial Committee members. They sought to pin him down on his inner feelings, his personal beliefs. As he put it, when a question from one direction did not accomplish this, then a question from another direction attempted to force him into some categorical reply. In his hearing before the first Judicial Committee, another elder named Benjamin Angulo was also on trial. Angulo was very positive, even adamant in many of his expressions. When they spoke in moderate terms, one of the committee members, Harold Jackson, told Rene, "You're not even a good apostate," saying that Rene did not clearly defend his beliefs. Jackson continued, "Look at Angulo, he defends them. You talk to Angulo about these things and look how he talks about them. He may be disfellowshipped, and yet you are not definite about these points." In the second hearing with the appeal committee, as had been shown, Rene's efforts at being moderate brought forth the expression hogwash. Mildness, moderateness, a willingness to yield where the issues permit yielding. These qualities do not make good evidence for disfellowshipping persons as rebellious apostates. Yet they are qualities that are part of Rene Vazquez's nature, and those who knew him know this is true. 2 years after his disfellowshipping, I talked to Rene about the whole affair and asked him how he now felt about having spoken to others on what he saw in the scriptures. What would he say to someone who advanced the argument that, as in the case of someone working for a business organization, as long as he is part of that organization, he should uphold all its policies, and if he could not, he should first leave before saying anything? His reply was, quote, "But that is a business organization, and I did not think of matters in those terms. I viewed the matter as involving a higher relationship, one with God. I know what my feelings were then and what was in my heart, and no one can tell me otherwise. If I were in some scheme, why should I now deny it? When the hearings came, I prayed that I would not be disfellowshipped. Others did the same, yet it happened." Rene goes on, "If I had wanted to stay in the organization just to proselytize, I would now be a militant. Where is the sect that I was working for? Where is the after fact to prove that that is what I was working for? To this day, even when people have approached me to talk with me, afterward I prefer to let them call me rather than take the initiative. If I had it all to do over again, I would be facing the same dilemma. I feel that so much good came from what I learned from the scriptures that it proved such a blessing to have things cleared up and brought me closer to God. If I had some scheme, I could have programmed the way I would do things. But what I did was simply human, and I was acting according to human reaction. That human element took precedence over fear of an organization. It was never my idea to disassociate myself from the witnesses. I was just rejoicing in what I was reading in the Bible. The conclusions I came to were as a result of my personal reading of the Bible. I was in no way trying to be dogmatic. The question I ask after all these 30 years as a witness, the feelings I had of mercy and compassion were why were these not felt by them? Why the conniving way of framing questions? The hearings were held as if to gather information proving guilt, not to aid an erring brother. And that's the end of Rene's quote. Ray goes on, one rumor that circulated widely, in fact internationally, was that these three men, Vazquez, Sanchez, and Quillen, all of whom worked in the Spanish translation department, were deliberately making changes in material when translating, and that I knew of this and had condoned it. In French-speaking countries, the rumor was adjusted to apply to French translation work. Rene's comments on this were, quote, "That is ridiculous. It would have been impossible to do. There were no changes made, and that never came into our minds. No one ever accused us of that. Everything translated had to go through about 5 different persons for checking. Fabio Silva being the last one to read it. In translating, it was always necessary to strive to be faithful to the original idea." End of. Probably the most vicious rumor passed on as truth by elders and others in various parts of this country was that there was homosexuality being practiced among the apostates. Where such a blatant lie originated is difficult to imagine. The only explanation I can think of is that about a year before the Inquisition tactics began, an organizational member in a position of considerable responsibility had been accused of homosexual tendencies. The governing body handled the case and endeavored to keep the matter quiet. Nonetheless, it seems that some talk did circulate. In the rumor mills, this man's actions were now transferred over to the apostates. This was easy to do, since spreaders of rumors are seldom concerned about facts. I can think of no other possible explanation. Why would people, priding themselves on their high Christian principles, pass on such vicious rumors when they had absolutely nothing but gossip on which to base them? I believe that in many cases it was simply because many felt a need somehow to justify in their own minds and hearts what had happened. They had to have reasons other than the true ones to explain why such summary and harsh actions were taken against people with unblemished records, people whom even their closest associates knew to be peaceful, unaggressive persons. To see the ugly label of apostate suddenly placed on these people required something more than the facts of the matter provided. Without such, those who knew these people and others who heard of them would have been obliged to face up to the possibility that the organization they viewed as God's sole channel of communication and guidance on earth was perhaps not what they thought it to be. For many, this was to think the unthinkable. It would severely disturb their feeling of security, a security that rests largely, far more than many would acknowledge, on their unquestioning trust in a human organization. And the next time we'll consider what Ray Franz calls his Sanhedrin experience, his prepping to go before the governing body and his actually being in front of the governing body.